Welcome. This evening is the September 11th, 2018 Jonathan Association Board of Directors meeting. We had no one here for open forum this evening. I just want to start off by saying that I think today's with 9/11, today I think it's a day of just a time when we all need to remember, what happened in 2001. It's just important to keep that in mind. First item on the agenda this evening is to approve the agenda. Are there any additions to it? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Move to adopt.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, the Secretary's report. Approval of the August 2018 minutes on page 1 through 3.
Move to adopt as presented.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next item is looking at the Treasurer's report, the August 2018 financials, located on 4 through 16.
Mr. President, as treasurer, I reviewed and saw nothing out of the ordinary. On the secondary sheet that Carrie sent me, first page, outstanding checks from February 13th, 2017. Please, let's address that. Thank you.
Is that one that's been out there for a while?
Well, it's a year and a half now. $875.36. Invoice refund is your notes next to it.
What was that? I'm sorry?
Invoice refund are your notes next to it. I don't know what that.
Okay.
Check 3516.
60?
3516.
60. Thank you.
One thing I would bring up here is that I believe in October we have a certificate of deposit that's coming due. Have you received any correspondence about that?
No, they just sent me I think it was November 3rd or something.
Oh, it's November.
I think so.
Okay.
I think she's just October is when we'd want to look at it and decide, so we can have some information in October and make a decision what we want to do with it.
Just keep in mind, I believe it was in July, we renewed another certificate of deposit, and we had determined that the certificate of deposit was still the best course of action. So, Steve, if that's something that perhaps you could keep an eye on over the next 30 days, just on their interest rate environment as it relates to CDs and other alternatives. Thank you for your...
I think we went with 6 month.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
But no, it seems like the Jonathan Association's balance sheet is strong. It's good to see progress made on a variety of different fronts. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
All right. If there's no other items, we'll move on to the management report.
Okay. So operating funds, everything is looking good there, as we just talked about. Board directive update, annual calendar is attached on page 19 through 22. A few things were added. I added planting of trees and clover as needed for September, just so that we stay on top of that for inventory and replanting. We went out last week and did an inventory through the clover area, and there was 22 trees that need replanting. So we went out for bid. We haven't gotten any back yet. They all said they'd get it this week or so. A couple that we have to take down, but Vern will just do that. And then the rest, some that have been missing over the last year or so, that will get replanted. A couple of stumps that we need removed also.
So we'll typically plant those. In the past, I recall, we've gotten perhaps a deal, if you will, by doing a late season plant.
Right. That's the one thing, so like Hartman and a couple other companies that I've bidded with, you know, they've asked if we want the warranty and the full price, or do we want a sale price with no warranty?
What do you
I know we've done this in the past, we went with the full price with the 1-year warranty, so would you guys prefer that?
What do you recommend?
I would say in the years past, when we planted trees, we've probably had 4 or 5 that needed replanting, so probably got our money's worth with the 1-year warranty. But you do save a lot of money with the wholesale pricing. I guess it just depends what their sale prices are at. If they're not a huge break, I would say go with the warranty, because a lot of them do have a hard time over winter.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you look at the price of replanting a tree, you could essentially double it,
Yeah,
right? Even if it is a deal.
right.
So really, you're getting a net benefit by utilizing a warranty situation.
Yep.
So that's something that, so we'll look to in October to get that, it's more of a maintenance expense,
Right.
but it's still, do we capitalize it?
The tree replacement.
Tree replacement, yeah, we can, especially if you're gonna do a large quantity,
Okay.
then I would say yes.
Right. I'd like to see, you know, in October, or perhaps even if it's something prior to then, it'd be nice to get a map of these 22 trees that you're talking about, just to have some institutional knowledge of where they're at, and then to keep just a tally at the Karen House.
Sure.
Does anyone have anything to add on that?
Is it just clover, or was it done throughout the association?
I mean, there's other trees that have been taken down throughout the association, but most of them are like in the wooded area, so don't really replace them. They just took one down today. Well, I don't know if they took it down either today or tomorrow, down by the trailhead that's dead. So we got 2 trees from the city at a wholesale price. One's going in Mill Pond for one that died there, and then we're gonna put this other one in there. So we got a good deal on those. Hopefully
Was it
they
one that
last.
died, one that we had planted recently in Mill
Yeah,
Pond?
we planted some in Mill Pond 2 years ago. They came and asked us, and we planted like 8 trees. We got a wholesale price from the city, which saved us a ton of money.
Yeah.
One of them died.
Okay.
So we're replacing that, because it's kind of right in the walking area, so replacing that, and then we got like a 2-for-1 deal, so, not a 2-for-1 deal, just, it was a special on 2 trees, so we're gonna replant the one in the trailhead too with this. So most of the trees throughout Jonathan, unless they're like in a main area, we don't replace, because most of them are in a wooded area. So clover's kind of the only area that we usually take down and replace, unless it's at a park or something. We haven't had any of those, so most of them have been in the wooded areas.
Well, perhaps people can be on the lookout in their neighborhoods,
Definitely.
and when you notice, make sure that we get those added to the list. Okay. Feel free to proceed.
Okay. Let's see here. Next board meeting's October 8th. We do plan to have the Karen House remodel starting in October. We're gonna have it painted here at the end of the month, hopefully, and then have the flooring installed in October, so then October we can talk about if we wanna keep having the meetings here or there, or what we're gonna do. Because we have a 90-day with the city. Okay. Change of ownership, we had 11 this last month on page 23. Correspondence, we did donate some of the 4th of July food, hot dogs and buns to the food shelf. They gave us a receipt for that on 24 and 25, and we're very happy with that. So we brought a lot of hot dogs and buns. Communications report, 26 and 27 is kind of from Clint. Clint and Judy and I met to kind of go over a few things, new letterhead and the newsletter, and just some changes and updates that we need to do to the website. Clint's gonna help me this fall, winter, update some pictures and stuff on the website, because he's a lot faster than I am on it. So, anything you want to touch on that?
We added a Facebook page that we're gonna post our information to. And then hopefully can use that to promote a photo contest and also doing an annual survey. So we can get more responses.
And also, I was supposed to contact Dunkin' Donuts for advertising, and I did. And I did hear back, but I haven't got a hold of the right person,
Okay.
so that's in the works.
Sounds good.
I have a question. So on a Facebook page, if someone makes a comment, do we have, who's responding to that? Or who, is that?
I mean, I'm kind of managing it. Clint's helping me, because we just kind of we pulled some stuff off of the old website and comments from the Life in Chaska and how we could respond to it, being the association, just to not get something going back and forth, but just a response. If people have questions more, I know on Life in Chaska, there was questions about the newsletter and people like, I've never gotten it. And so we could just respond with, please contact our office. If you haven't, stop by for a copy, something like that.
Yeah, the goal is an offline conversation.
Yep.
It's a good idea. I think the canned responses are pretty effective. It stays consistent, and it doesn't open it up to
Right.
an open-ended discussion.
Yep.
And we still have the ability to perhaps remove comments that may be
Yep.
inappropriate?
Yeah, anyone that comments on our Facebook profile, we have to approve first.
Okay,
So,
understood.
yeah, so we'll see how it goes. We're gonna kind of do a trial run and hopefully it works. All right. Letters report. Email blast this month. Don't have any action items this month as far as board approval for on anything besides the resident request for action. Collections are going down slowly, but they're going, and the bad debt that Stefan approved last month for the 1,400, was it, or 13 and change, that just got deducted this week, so that'll come off too, which will help. Hopefully we just keep getting some checks in. And that's really about it. The collections, there's a Fuller's report in there, a couple payment plans, and then the delinquency sheet.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So you said the bad debt, I mean, is that the one that's in the board packet?
The one from last month for the,
Oh, that the board approved last month?
Yes, yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep,
I thought I heard my name. so-
Yep. So that is it, unless anyone has questions.
Is there a status update for the remaining capital projects? So we have left, what's left on the radar for this year for capital projects? The trees, which you
Trees.
just talked about, and
Yep. But, I mean, we have a couple little.
Tuscany signs.
Tuscany signs are half done. We just have to get them painted yet, and then they're completed. The stucco was just repaired yesterday. There was some stucco falling off and some brick crack. They fixed that yesterday. Trees have been redone, and they just have to paint that. Mill pond, culvert is still. Mhm.
That wasn't on the.
We did repair that cement area that you had sent. That was repaired yesterday. So that's looking good. And then in this packet somewhere is talking about insurance. Our insurance company made a couple requests on some things that they wanted repaired. One of them was the steps at Cairn House. There's like a 2-inch lip. That was repaired yesterday also, both the top and the bottom. And then there's a few minor things that we have to do, like the fire extinguisher, which is annual things that we do anyways. And that's all scheduled to get repaired in the next month or so.
how about the 25,000 that was approved for the pavilion last month? Where's that project at?
Oh, we just talked to the excavator today. He was gonna come next week, but we're pushing him back 1 week because the asphalt company can't get in till probably the first week in October. So we don't want it to sit too long without getting asphalt laid. So probably start that in 2 weeks, and then the week after will be asphalt, and then the railing's set to go right after that.
Oh, so we'll see an update in October.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep, and we'll get pictures and stuff, so.
Yeah. I was gonna suggest too, I know I saw an email today with some pictures in it. I would feel free next time around, bring pictures with, and we'll show them up here, and
Sure.
people at home can
I
see
brought
if
them
they're
with if you
watching.
want them.
You have them with?
And Clint and I mean, I want to get them on the website too, so we can show residents, so they can go look and see.
Yeah.
So I've just been saving them all on my computer, and I print them So I don't print them all for you because it's color copies and
I
it
understand.
takes much, but
do
I
we
can
get-
put them on the screen if you want.
Yeah, I think I would like to
No, let's do it.
put them on the screen.
I looked on my phone, but, I left it at home, but.
Bill, can we have some help with the overhead? Thanks. Oh, there he goes. I think, if you push dock camera on that pad, is there something that says dock camera?
This?
Screen there in front of you.
Oh.
Screen left.
Push your picture out towards the keyboard.
Is he doing it?
Can you see him?
No.
No, the display's not working correctly.
Okay.
Yep, there you
Oh,
go.
there.
Got it?
That did it.
Slow but sure.
All right. So I don't know if he can zoom in or
Yeah.
not, but this was,
A little bit, Bill?
yep. So is that Autumn Woods, this piece was cracked. So the guys took it out and just replaced it with a flat one, but it's a lot cheaper than reordering one, so very good improvement there. This was a tree that was down on a path, I don't remember which path this was. We had a couple of them down this last month. The guys found them doing their rounds and took care of that. Hard to see. These were some trees that needed trimming. Ben's, a lot of times will just send things like when they're mowing, like tree at Haverhill needs trimming or whatever, we go over and clean it up. That's one of them for an example. This was just a tree that, the stump is getting removed when the stump guy comes out.
So that's in Clover.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep, right off of Schoolmaster and Clover Ridge Drive. So they cut it down, cut the stump down as far as they can, but we're getting that stump removed and a tree replaced there too. This was a lovely big tree over by Stone Creek. There's two of them, and they were probably the biggest trees the guys took down, but they did a good job. And it's still laying there because they have to still clean it up because they just dropped it. But it was a big project. So that's those two trees. This is the mill pond cement part that was fixed. That was all kind of sunk in and broke up.
Excellent job.
Yeah, so it looks really good. And then this is the Karen house. This is the before. There is a big lip down here and then another lip at the top of the stairs. We're both over 2 inches, so insurance requested, we got those done and they are completed.
Did they do sand jacking there, or what did they do?
No, they were going to, but they said they thought with the railing, they were worried that the railing would get messed up, and they thought it was easier just to remove the two pieces, and they just re-cement it. Still isn't cheap, but cement work is expensive. But it looks really good, so we have to do some repairing here on the sides with some seed or something, but
What was the price for all the cement work that was done?
this stuff,
Approximately.
help me, the mill pond was 1,200,
So, yeah, it's either 12 or just under.
yep, and this,
We're around the 15 mark, I think.
I think this was 14 something, 1410 or 1480, something like that. Because they came all at the same time with one load, because then you have to pay a load delivery fee, so. So yes, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks good.
So that's it for the management report, again, unless anyone has questions.
All right, old business. Stephen, you and I briefly discussed the trail system maps. So it sounds like there's some approval or some proofs that the city has for us, perhaps?
Some proofs that we're waiting to get from the city.
Okay.
They just updated us today, their work, they have a proof completed, and they're just waiting for approval on it, and then he's gonna send it to me.
Page 63, bad debt.
Excuse me, you mean,
trail markers, like trail maps.
Yeah, but I mean proof, you mean this, the example and?
Yeah, they're designing a map for us.
And then we approve it and
Yep.
then it'll come
Yep,
up.
correct.
Okay. Mr.
So
Bostrom was asking.
by next month, we should
what
have
the
one.
status was. Thank you.
Yep.
Page 63, under old business, request for action and bad debt.
Yeah, this is a follow-up to last month. I had, it was supposed to be ready for last month, but it wasn't. And so this was the request from 2 months ago. All of these cases were reviewed on a case-by-case basis with both Stephen and Carrie and myself. And all of these accounts that are listed here they're uncollectible debts. So I asked that the board make the motion as requested in the written report, and these debts are uncollectible due to foreclosures, bankruptcy, and even death. If you wanted to know specifics about the account, please reference the account number and not the address or the name. But they've all been validated. And so the total amount is $14,145.90. The association has an allowance of almost $70,000 reserved. So there's no net financial impact since we've already accrued for these foreseeable uncollectibles.
Okay. So the motion is to approve writing off $14,145.90 as bad debt.
So moved?
Second.
So, motion by Wolf, second by, I think I heard Steve Doomer first, so, for the record. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Capital Award nominees. Need nominees. I think we've seen that now for several months. Okay. Idle House, page 65 through 68. So it seems to me that our exploration of perhaps filing for a permit to demolish the Idle House has some implications that may inhibit us from doing so in an expeditious manner.
So I reached out to Liz and just asked, because last meeting you guys had talked about how can we get it demolished? As you can see, how she responded, that we'd need to do a public hearing. And we need to get a permit. What was that? Yeah, the Historical Society or whatever needs to make the approval or the denial. So
It's my understanding that we make the request, and as part of the process for the Heritage Preservation Committee or Commission, they call a public hearing, and then they hold the public hearing, and then they then determine after the public hearing is held
I see.
whether they support or do not support. So,
Based on what they have from
based on the application,
public hearing. So they can
Feedback.
essentially deny our request without it going before a council?
So do they,
but we may have an appeal, there may be an appeals process, I'm not sure, we need to investigate that.
so does that get published in the paper for public knowledge before?
I think it gets sent, I think the way I see it is it would get sent to people within 350 feet.
Directly by mail,
Yeah.
and then notifications published either in the registrar or in the local public paper.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a specific process for public meetings.
We would have to show that we've taken all avenues to save and use the historic structure prior to requesting a permit to demolish it. So to use the historic structure, I think we've taken a lot of avenues, but I don't see us being able to say we've actually used, we've taken an avenue to use the historic structure.
We can't.
Well, yeah, we can't. I mean, with the,
I understand that. I'm just saying this is what the
well, yeah, but
commission.
couldn't, we should put that in our application, that we can't because of safety, radon, or whatever. Yeah.
And I would even question, is there a certificate of occupancy that's still valid for the structure?
I wouldn't think so.
So,
How do you find out?
contact the city and then
Oh,
they tell you yes or no if
I
there
mean, if
was.
there's no running water, I don't think you can have an occupancy permit.
that's right. But do they just keep an occupancy permit open until, or they just close it themselves, or how does that work?
I think that we would have to go back and investigate. At some point, the facility was no longer utilized because it was a daycare, and then it was decommissioned as a daycare, and it sat vacant since. I don't know that, I don't know what took place, whether there was, you know, some items that needed to be corrected that was noted by the city, or what the case is. But I think that no matter what takes place, if we're gonna move forward with all three of our avenues, I think that we need to do some additional research, actually complete the application, complete the process. Because it was my understanding that the board was going to explore all options and do it all concurrently. So, I think what Liz put forward is, here's what you need to do, here's what she believes is the potential of it coming to fruition, but here's the process. So I think it's the ball's in our court to go through the process,
I do too.
unless we choose to pivot.
So in my records on Idle House, I do have the policy resolution number 13 from the Jonathan Association Board of Directors dated December 13th, 2011. And it does say that the Idle House has been vacant and unused since early 2000s, when it was discovered to have a safety concern due to high levels of radon gas, and that while affirming that the Idle House in its current condition does not promote health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Jonathan, and the City of Chaska's Heritage Preservation Commission, blah, 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 as outlined in Section 3013 of Chapter 10.5 of the Code of Ordinances, has the authority to make recommendation that the Idle House be acquired by the city via eminent domain powers. But that could never happen, we found out, because it was declared a historical, not a monument, something that held us from doing that and going forward. So what I have here from that date tells us that Jonathan's effort to renovate or restore the Idle House would not make effective use of available financial resources, would not be sound management, resource management, and would not be fiscally responsible. But it does say the cost of restoring Idle House is an expense the Jonathan Association cannot afford. The association is not in financial position to maintain the Idle House and cannot afford to do so. That's why nothing has ever been done. And that was from 2011. And I know that they could not do eminent domain. I do know that.
So I think the points that you made add to the application.
Right,
I think at some point, we just need to sit down
and
actually
write it.
follow the process, write the application, get all the facts, do some research.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that with you.
Yeah, great. I would definitely work on that.
Great. Thank you.
Then I would like to plant the seed that at some point, if you feel that you need a consultant with expertise, that perhaps go to the executive committee or come back to the board for a budget. Because I can see that at some point you may hit some roadblocks and you need technical expertise. So I just want to make sure the board's supporting you in your efforts.
Can we use some of that $150,000 that's been designated in the budget for this year for the house? It was set up to be,
Our reserve study has it as a potential expenditure in 2019.
okay,
I think any exploratory efforts would be more of an administrative
okay,
expense.
okay. So, can't have that one.
At least not yet.
Okay, all right. I think we should go forward with that, and Chase and I can definitely work on that.
It's wonderful. Thank you for your leadership.
Sure.
Okay. Tree policy, Mr. Chase.
So
Look at you, jumping in and even jumping in already after 2 months.
That's what happens when I drive the road, right? Carrie and I met a few weeks ago, and several board members had provided some documents that they felt would be beneficial to establishing a written tree policy. Carrie was well on her way to organizing that information, and together we were able to finalize this presentation or this draft for the board. Essentially, what we were looking to accomplish is to set out the purpose. Why are we maintaining the trees? What is the benefit to the residents, to the Jonathan Association? Organize a schedule of maintenance that would involve staff and management having set dates or times, if you will, to visually assess trees, maintain them, and then also, if I step back a little bit, break trees that we're going to be maintaining, at least for the purposes of the maintenance plan as it is right now, into two categories. The first is boulevard trees, which we know primarily consist in the Clover neighborhoods. And then the second, what we called common area trees. And for this purpose, those trees are really trees within 10 feet of the Jonathan Trail system. So we're looking to empower management to really work outside of the board to maintain trees on the boulevards and within 10 feet of the Jonathan Trail system. So what we've done here is outlined what that schedule of maintenance would look like, what trees we believe should be approved for boulevard versus those common area trees on or near the Jonathan Trail system. And then, of course, the landscape committees, landscape companies rather, which is really what empowers management to make this all happen. So I would like to see the board's feedback, on how this is outlined, and then also on the trees themselves. The boulevard trees is a much smaller group of trees. The common area trees, I would like to see them replaced with a similar tree, the tree of the same species. But of course, there are several trees that do well in our region, so any of those would be acceptable. Earlier on, we heard how management was able to work with the city of Chaska for some wholesale trees, and I think that's great. So if that's available, then that's fantastic, right? But then at the end of the day, we have this this list of approved companies that management can work with, basically just to keep the process going, just to make sure that the trees are getting maintained, changed out when necessary, and as a result, the boulevards are visually appealing and all the other benefits of tree maintenance as well.
I think it's very well put together, so congratulations to you and everyone that worked on put it together very well. I do have two comments. The first one is I noticed that the list of approved trees were all, I believe, are coniferous trees and not deciduous trees, and not, there's no coniferous trees. Was that by design?
Good point. No, that was not by design. That's a good point. What I see are the deciduous, but
Yep.
Jonathan is big for sure, so there are definitely the conifers. So, for sure we would take an action to amend the approved trees, particularly for the common areas. But, right around Clover Ridge Elementary, there are some evergreens. I'm not sure if those are city trees or Jonathan trees, but they're very close to the gazebo, so they may very well be.
Yep. And the reason I thought about that is for, like Tuscan Hills, they just replaced some in there. And the second comment that I had is, it's taking a step back from what's listed here is the 3-bid process or the competitive process. If we're gonna do 20 trees or 15 trees at a time, I love that we have an approved vendor list. but if we're really gonna put a request for proposals out there, or request for bids, I think at some point we should build into our policy that, you know, we do the assessment, and if there's X number of trees or more, you go through a competitive process and requires at least X number of bids. And of course, our approved vendors can participate in that. And I know that these vendors are on here because they're our trusted expert. We have relationship with them already established. But just to make sure the association gets the most bang for the buck for those larger projects.
Okay, yeah, just a clarifying question then, Stefan. So when we have a larger amount, then are you saying we would even look outside of the approved vendors? Or we would stay within the approved vendors and open bidding to all of them?
You know, it's tough. I mean, when we think about, I'm just thinking about, when we did our asphalt, we realized tens of thousands of dollars of savings by going out for competitive bid in year 3 of 5. I mean, literally almost $1 a square foot was saved. My concern is in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, it's gonna be great. But what happens in year 4 or 5 or 10? I'm just thinking that at some point, and I don't know what the number is, but if it's 15 trees or more, because that'll probably be at least a $20,000 or $30,000 project.
Right.
To pull them out, put new ones in, grind stumps, that goes to, we publish it in the newspaper. There's some sort of competitive process. And that's what a city would do,
Absolutely.
so.
I have one thing,
Well
Chase.
taken.
I know in the Clover neighborhood, especially, one tree that I believe has weathered nicely, or at least been hardy, is the hackberry. So in your assessment of good boulevard trees, that might be one to maybe just revisit and see if it's, you know, would continue to be a good fit for us moving forward. It seems like we have only a few approved boulevard trees, so, and it, you know, we talk about diversity, it might be good to have perhaps a few different approved options. I think the linden tree is a great preferred option, but
Yeah, I agree. You know, the boulevard trees, you know, I do think there's something to be said about having consistency, but you can have, you know, a few variations within that and still present well and consistent. And then also, as everyone knows, you know, it also comes down to the root system. There are some areas, particularly in Cloverfield, where the boulevards are very narrow. But that's not everywhere, so, yeah, absolutely.
And
Cool.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
Speaking from personal experience in my own trees and in my own yard, maybe you could get ones that are seedless. Is that possible? We have seeds everywhere from trees. Not when they were young so much, but when they mature. And they're quite a nuisance, and somebody's got to clean up the seeds. So, a thought.
Good input.
Just like the old maple, right? I think only every 3 or 4 years, they do little helicopters.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, are they beautiful the years that they don't.
Yeah.
what about ash trees? No, I'm just kidding. All right, no, Chase and Carrie and staff, tremendous job here. This is very professional, very well organized. I've always said that policy has a way of guiding us. It gives us parameters, it gives us kind of that left-right limits. I'm not gonna go as far as saying policy protects us, but what I will say is this gives someone a very clear cut method, if you will, on maintaining one of our biggest assets in the association, which is trees, so.
So are we thinking making just a few minor tweaks and then coming back next month for approval?
That's the note I took, is that I would address Kay, Justin, and your Stefan, you know, your feedback or observations, concerns, next month.
Yeah, I think you guys did a fantastic job.
I mean, you do have it protected, Chase. I mean, it talks about how any deviation from these approved or preferred boulevard trees, it's recommended by one of our professionals. I mean, obviously, there could be other trees that are utilized. To be honest with you, I don't know that it's something that I would necessarily recommend that we have to make any additions to it, so. I mean, and this is something that I feel like should be living and breathing. It should be constantly perhaps changing. So if we wanted to go ahead and look to approve this and get this enacted, I hope there's not a lot of red tape here. I mean,
Absolutely, you know, I would certainly, you know, like to present a motion to approve as is and allow management to update as necessary. And certainly to, you know, feel free to inquire with or accept bids outside of the approved. And it's, you know, if you're seeing that those bids are better, then it's time to adjust the approved list of vendors.
Yeah, I just think we can, this can be a living and breathing document. I don't even necessarily know if we have to have a formal approval every time we perhaps make a change to it, because it's something that's gonna be sitting in the
Yeah.
Karen House that we use as a guiding document. This isn't legally binding or anything like that. I still think we should, you know, motion to,
Well, there's a motion on the table, I'll second that. And then my comment would be, absolutely appreciate the document as presented, and like Justin had mentioned, you know, think about the collection policy, we've amended it 5-6 times. We've learned things 6 months or a year from now, and perhaps that's some of those comments, things we can fold in over time, so.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Can we put that on our website?
I just asked him, I'm like, should we put that on our website? Thoughts on that? I think,
We're very transparent as an organization,
Yeah.
right?
okay,
Mill Pond, oh, sorry.
You say no pun?
No, I said I was going to Mill Pond.
Oh, no fun. Oh, Mill Pond, oh.
all right, so update on Mill Pond. I don't know if you guys got to read page 75. It's kind of a lot of information. After a lot of digging and getting the 1968 agreement between the city and Jonathan, Helmuth's office believes that the city is responsible for maintaining the pond. There's a lot of ifs, and basically his outtake is, his feeling is the city's responsible for the pond. However, that doesn't mean they have to do anything that we suggest. So, I've talked to the city multiple times about this. They do not feel like there's anything wrong with it. Even if there is a leak or a crack in the culvert, it's still doing what it's supposed to do as far as a stormwater collection pond. So I don't think that they'll fix it. It doesn't cause any issues to us. It's just the Mill Pond people that are not liking that it's low in level. So,
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If I could, and this may have been answered previously. So Helmuth did the research. It's his opinion that it is the city's responsibility to maintain it. What happens to Jonathan if we decide to make a repair? You know, are we fined then? Does the city come
Right.
stop work? I mean, what would happen in that instance?
I think
I-
it sets a precedent, to be honest with you.
Right.
Perhaps there's other areas that would from time to time come up that we would be asked to repair or make a fix. And we best not be repairing someone else's property or taking on the responsibility that isn't ours.
I'd just like to point out that, you know, when there's litigation that's potential, that is a reason that you can close a meeting. And I think that, you know, when we're reviewing attorney-client privileged information, which is what we have in front of us from our lawyer, that once you disclose that in public, it's no longer privileged. So I guess my recommendation to the board would be, if you're gonna have this conversation, especially you don't wanna violate that privilege, that should be in a closed session. However, non-privileged conversation that may not be litigious in nature, we should definitely discuss in open session. So, I just want to throw that out there.
No, that's very good reminder.
Because it sounds to me like you've contacted the city, they don't want to play ball.
right,
When you said there's no impact other than it's low for the members of that area.
Yeah.
Well, where's the water going? Is there erosion issues? Is there other things
There
that's
hasn't
happening?
been so far, and that's something we'd have to probably dig a lot deeper into and spend more money. I mean, it's not, the only thing was this sunken area where the cement was just fixed, you know, was
Which
that
cost us how much?
1,200,
Okay.
you know.
So is that a
what-
byproduct of the erosion?
Right,
So
So-
there is issues that's underlying here. And it's-
we asked the concrete company, and they didn't think so, Vern doesn't think so, but, you know, those are things that you could dig into more. There's no actual impact, except, you know, we didn't get a lot of rain this summer, so that pond wasn't holding water, so it was just seeping into the ground, into the storm system, and, so it was drying up, which makes it kind of gross for the residents. So that's the main complaint, is from the residents, because they, you know, their aerator's not working if it's too low. So, and that was kind of the city's take on it too. It's doing what's supposed to do, it's collecting stormwater.
So has there been a written request, a formal written request, for them to address the issue, and we told them what the issue was, and have they responded in writing?
The city,
Yes.
yes.
And
I
who
wouldn't
from
say
the city?
formal request, but there's been emails back and forth,
Okay, I think, you know what, we're how much into this for a lawyer?
a lot.
How much, over
Seven?
$5,000?
No, I think
You're
7.
probably somewhere between 7 and 10.
Okay,
now.
at some point, can we have our attorney draft a demand letter, right? That would
And
be
that's
the
kind of
first
where
step
we're
in the
at.
process.
Yep,
And say, this is the problem that we think is in place. This is what we believe is, he's done the research already. And then let's get a letter in writing back from them. But
Okay.
I just think that, I mean, we could
Yeah,
have
but so
fixed it.
Stefan, just so you know, consider something else though. When I talk about precedent, like this isn't this isn't the only situation that could perhaps come about. The allocation of resources to this one option, although it might be, you know, a high price tag, it still plays into this larger discussion of a lot of different areas or instances that could come up. So I just think we need to do it right.
And would you agree that a demand letter or a formal letter, and not just an email back to whoever it might be, but a letter addressed to the mayor and the city administrator would be the next appropriate step? And then they can respond in writing. But at some point, we need to let them know that, you know, we would like some action taken. And, you know, or the board could choose to let it be. I mean, that's the board's decision, but at some point, you know, we've done all this research, we spent all this money, what's the outcome? And I'm just surprised we haven't sent a letter yet. So, I guess I'll make a motion, and we'll see where everybody stands, that we have Helmuth draft a letter requesting action to be taken by the city based on the research that he's compiled.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Insurance binder and recommendations on page 82. So this is just kind of a whole packet of all the different recommendations that the insurance company is making.
Mr. President, wasn't this, most of these items have been already addressed by management, right? So is there any action you need to take from us?
nope, this was just for you guys' information mainly, what the insurance company was requesting.
I guess I was just confused.
So this is just an FYI of all the different binders we have from the bid we approved
Along with their
previously.
requests of, yep, a few things to get improved.
Will it go out of old business then?
It'll be gone next month.
Okay. That concludes our old business. New business, page 98, the appointing of an open board seat. So we have one interested party that was here, I believe, last month, expressed his interest in candidacy. Mr. Jeremy T. Landcamer Ely. So pursuant to our bylaws, when a board position is vacant, the board has the ability to appoint that position to fulfill the remainder of the open board seat's term. So I guess at this point, would anyone like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Landcamer Ely? Or is this, does anyone have any other options?
So if we appoint him to finish out the term, and then he'll have to reapply or
He could perhaps run in the next election period.
okay.
I would make a motion to appoint Mr. Landcamer Ely to the board.
All right. Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All opposed? All right, we have one vote in the negative. Motion carried.
Would this term be through February? Is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah, so do you want to notify him
Yep.
tomorrow and? All right, neighborhood 5, request for action on page 99.
So this is, I don't know if any of you remember, probably just Justin and Steven, or Stefan, I think you were with too, when we did our board tour a couple years ago. This is over neighborhood 5 off of Washington Lane. It's the only trail that we have with an asphalt curb. We didn't know what to do with it. There's a bunch of electrical and cable boxes that are kind of in the way. Our past asphalt company said that they couldn't get their equipment in there. I had our current vendor go out there this year, and he said the same. It's too narrow to get their equipment down between the curb and the electrical boxes. So this particular resident came in and kind of as a spokesperson for her neighborhood and said they wanted it repaired or removed. And then she came back and said, no, they don't want it removed. They would like it repaired. I did tell her about the issues that we've been having with it, and that it was brought up in the past. I do have our asphalt companies coming out tomorrow morning to meet me to go look at it, to see what they can do, if they can do it by hand, if without machinery. So I guess it's kind of a waiting game with that. And I did tell her if we did it, it wouldn't be anything till 2019, but that I would contact her once we decided. So I just put it in because it's a request for action. I don't know if there's really any approval we can do on it until we get more information from the asphalt company as to what it would cost. Because if they can't get their machinery in there, I'm guessing it's going to cost a lot more than what it would typically spend. We did talk about removing it a couple years ago, but we were worried that it would cause erosion issues because we kind of figured the curb was put in to divert the water. And I'll get some pictures too. If you guys don't get there, I can send you pictures that kind of shows you how the curb runs, and you can kind of tell that they probably put it there to divert the water, not to go into people's driveways.
How many feet is this?
What was that?
How many feet? Or is it a
Oh,
block, or
it's
is it-
fairly long, I would say. I'm not very good at guessing feet. 100 yards, maybe?
Is that a football field?
75?
No, that's a third.
Football field is 100 yards.
Yes, maybe
That
50
was
to
300.
75. It's a
It
decent
basically,
size.
it has a long straight portion and then it has a curve to the trail.
Mhm.
So,
It's at a slope,
and it's low.
and there's some property improvements that are very close to the trail system,
Very, very close.
like probably within setback almost, close.
Mhm.
Um,
Lots of utilities.
Lots of utilities, and then it leads to a city trail. So I guess we'll just wait and see
Is it
what
in
the asphalt company says.
bad shape?
It's not that it's in terrible shape. There was a tree that went out, and so that asphalt got all broken up, so there's just class 5 in a little area. But as Stefan said, it's right up to a couple garages, so I don't even know how it was ever approved in the first place because it's so close to the properties. And then like on the other side of the trail is all the cable and electrical boxes, so.
Almost can't fit through on the golf cart.
Great, the golf cart, you have to kind of stop and weave in and out so you don't hit stuff. And that's the golf cart, so it's very narrow.
Where is it on the trail assessment?
Well, we never decided what we wanted to do with it, but next year's, we're finishing up all the overlays, so it'll be on next year. If we're gonna proceed with it.
I guess this, I have and this is more of just a question, but when it comes to common elements, a common element, if we were to go and pave, like tomorrow, let's say, if we were to go pave a new asphalt trail in the middle of a park, would that now become a common element just because? Or, you know, is a common element something that is put in its originality?
No, if you were to add a trail to your system, that would become a common element.
It would be a property, it would be an improvement upon an existing common element,
This
right?
would-
Because we wouldn't improve something we didn't own, so obviously we own the land.
Yeah.
It would be an improvement to our land that we own.
It's just tough when we talk about decommissioning, right? Because perhaps, you know, that's not a route easily taken.
True, but, you know, I would make the argument that we're 50 years old,
Yeah.
and things change in 50 years. I mean, even the topography changes. And I think there's more to this. It's the only one with a curb.
Right.
So obviously, removal there's probably some water issues. I mean, it makes sense to me. If it's worked for 30, 40 years, if they have to go out there and hand tamp it, it's just the price of doing business, you know? But,
I agree.
so our next steps is you are procuring opinions and bids.
Yep,
And then, so you'll close the loop with the homeowner and let them know that
yep,
there'll be additional follow-up in spring?
yes. I'll probably just present something next month with some pricing as to see what we're thinking. If it's something, I agree with you that I don't think it should be
If
removed.
it's not something we're gonna do this year, I don't think we should look at bids.
Okay,
Yeah, my concern is, I think that it's, you know, that we close the loop with the owner.
Yeah.
Because this is something you don't wanna have going on and on and on. And I would recommend that, you know, whatever the associations are gonna do with this, if we're gonna assess it and then make a determination in spring, that we put that in writing and we notify all impacted parties in the immediate vicinity of that trail, so they know what's going on. It's not just hanging out there, you know.
Yeah,
But you're
the-
right, we've already spent $150,000 this year on trail system. It's not this year, it's not gonna
right,
happen.
no. We're just basically seeing if it's something that can be completed.
Right, and we have 1 year left in our 5-year plan,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, I would say at this point, I think the research aspect, the getting opinions from people is the primary, I think it's one of the primary things to look at. The price, I think that the price could be a lot different in the spring. So I don't even know if you want to spend a lot of time on that.
Okay,
But they did say they want it done immediately, so I think you should contact them and let them know.
oh, I will,
Yeah,
yep,
thank you.
yep.
And you'll put a tickler on the calendar to follow back up in the spring?
Yes.
All right, request for action regarding the Fieldstone development, starting on page 100. So I see a request for an easement, a utility easement and drainage, 20 feet wide across Outlot J, which is on Jonathan property. 20 feet. Easement is required in response to direction from the city engineering department as to where to locate the new sanitary sewer and water services for the proposed addition. The way I see this is the individual from Fieldstone Family Homes is saying that the city engineering department has directed the individual, Fieldstone Family Homes, to request this easement or to run their lines through this outlot. What do people think about that as far as thoughts?
Well, I read it differently. And this sentence was prepared by the applicant.
Yes,
I read it as that they submitted something to the city, and the city says, no, that won't work, figure something else out. And this is the applicant's response to how they would like to resubmit to the city. To be frank with you, a 20-foot easement, you know, there's no consideration here for running the easement. And quite frankly, why can't they go out the other side of the house? Isn't that where the other two houses are currently being ran the other way? This is just to service one house, is that correct?
I think part of it's serving all three, because there's so many different services that are running between sewer and electricity, so I think some are gonna run through the sides. Whatever they're running this through our property, I'm not sure what that was. Sanitary, it looks like.
Sanitary and water. I mean, it looks like that's the only utility run that I see here, unless we have,
There's something coming off the top and the bottom.
Right.
The 4-inch riser, the 6-inch riser. Oh, there's some notes on the left-hand side under the Lot 1 services, Lot 2 services. So Lot 3 services, sanitary use existing.
where are you seeing that?
It's on the left side of the page here.
Right here.
Page 102.
It's on page 102, yeah.
So I see lot 1 services, but I don't see use existing.
I'm
Is
sorry, that's on
just
Lot
no
3.
longer?
It says
Oh,
SAM
okay.
is sanitary. So that's what they're asking for an easement for, is sanitary. And then, so Lot 3 is using the existing.
Yeah.
And then if you go to Lot 1, it says sanitary 40 linear feet at 4% slope. And then sanitary for Lot 2 is 114 linear feet at 2%, 2.6% slope.
It seems to me like, I think it's the issue I would see here, if I were in anticipation of what the builders are trying to accomplish, they don't want to run utilities below another property to get to another property. So it's all gotta come in from different areas.
So, Justin, I have this that I had from a while back, dated August
I've seen
6th.
that.
Yeah. Is this any, it looks somewhat different.
This one that we have on 102 is just more to date with a little more
Yeah.
information.
So the 1K has, I have a copy of that too, and you can see the X's, they removed those, I remember from previous discussions, so now it's just the one easement. You know, I would say that there's houses at least 8 to 10 years old around the proposed building site. You know, regardless if it's this plan or another plan, anytime you try to put something new in the middle of something existing, you're gonna have to cut a hole somewhere. So I like this plan overall. But I understand that there's concerns, so I would just say on page 115 of the board packet carries correspondence with David Hellman. Maybe it's not page 115, I might be mistaken. Okay, well, somewhere in the, at least in the digital board packet, I saw
Get some
what the recommendations, the attorney. So I don't know if we want to continue.
119, I think, is the
119.
correspondence.
Thank you. So if you turn a 5 upside down, is that a 9? That's it. Page 119.
And this was written too, he has a total of 6,000, that's when they originally wanted to use all 3 lots. So now it would just be the 2,000 plus attorney's fees.
But this is for a 20-foot easement.
Right.
Before, it wasn't a 20-foot easement.
Right.
Are there any conditions to the 4 that if we were to maybe recommend adding, it might make it more palatable for anyone on the board.
I think ultimately, the way I see this playing out would be to have a formal request or a proposal set forth by the applicant. What is their offer?
One thing we haven't really thought about is what happens in 10 years from now when the homeowner, when something happens to the sewer line for the homeowner, and it's gonna be the homeowner's responsibility, and, it's gonna cost them 15, 20 grand. Because this is a huge run, where typically the sewer would be right outside your house, right? And part of this easement is gonna be that since if you think about like, in my house, right? I'm responsible to the street, to where it connects. So the homeowner that purchases this property, via the easement, is gonna be responsible for that entire run all the way through our property.
Keep in mind, these lots were not zoned for single-family homes. The planning commission rezoned it, essentially, and this is existing line you see, that's because they were gonna use townhomes there, and they only needed one route.
Well, if there's already a line there, why can't they run a collector to that one line? Go out, what do we call the front or the back, the alley side, right? And then, since they own all three pieces of property now, they could create their own easement on their own property to run to the collector.
The alleyway is not their property.
Well, they could collect across the properties, right? I don't know if there's enough, there might not be slope. That might be the issue.
Well, I would think there's slope.
Well, if there was, then theoretically, lot one could be the start, and then come collector through lot two, then through lot three, and then to the existing line. I mean, have they explored that option?
I know.
Can you do that?
I was just thinking the only thing is if they did have issues, then you'd have to dig underneath the house. I don't know how it works.
No, this would, they'd have to dig up the alleyway.
The alley, but
Right. Or across their front or backyard, whatever that is considered.
Yeah, I mean, looking for a motion here.
I would make a motion to approve the applicant's request for the 20-foot wide drainage and utility easement across Outlot J with the conditions recommended by the attorney in the August 8th email to Carrie.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? One thing I want to add to the conversation is, I just don't think we have a complete proposal from the applicant. This seems like, I feel like they're trying to just trying to kind of throw it at us, and that's just my take on it. Any other discussion?
I agree. I think that, to me, it's not as clear as it could be, and it should be in writing. I can look at a picture, I'm not very good at that, but if I read something, I truly understand it if I look at a picture. And I would prefer that if we're the ones that have to decide. I need something more substantial in writing.
So you're recommending that they draft the easement and then provide appropriate supporting documentation for our consideration? Chase?
Yes, I would amend the motion to draft the easement agreement based on David Helmuth's email to Carrie, and then management could deliver the easement proposal to, not Cloverfield, who's Fieldstone, and they can accept that or not, right?
Wait. I think that's not what.
That's not what you're saying?
That's not what I was saying.
She's saying, I think what she's saying is that
I said if we have to
the
decide.
applicant should draft the written easement of what they want us to agree to, and then provide supporting documentation so we can review.
Yeah,
a
so I know what it
complete
means,
request.
because
Right.
I'm not an architect or anything. I don't know.
Okay.
I
So
would
that-
prefer it in writing, it's clear, we all know what we're voting on, we all know what it says. Because I wouldn't want to be that poor homeowner that had, unless it's just the alley, I don't understand. So let's just leave it at that. I think we need to have a clearer, more concise, written proposal.
Okay, I call the question.
Isn't,
All in favor?
Point of order. So we had an amendment. Did that amendment fail because it wasn't seconded?
Correct.
I don't think we had an amendment.
Yeah, he did it.
He
He
amended.
He amended.
And then so the question was called before it was seconded.
Oh, my gosh.
So that what we're actually gonna, and the question was called, and then what we're voting on was your original.
amendment.
And I
which
would
is-
ask that the secretary repeat that in respect of the question being called, so that we know what we're truly voting on.
That's right.
So where you need to know the amendment,
No,
No.
of the
the original
original.
motion, okay. Lundstrom moved to approve the proposal with the conditions recommended by the attorney.
Mr. President. I was just trying to clarify where we're at.
Yeah,
We all clear where we're at
I think so.
in respect to the question being called?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
All right, motion does not carry. So we have another motion to make?
I make a motion that the, I don't know their name,
Fieldstone.
the Fieldstone project, with the information that they gave us for the 20-foot drainage and utility easement from approval from the Jonathan Association, needs to be clarified in writing in a much better readable form, perhaps with still the map, and that needs to be presented to us, the Jonathan Association Board of Directors, for further discussion and possible approval.
We have a motion. Can you repeat the motion, Clint?
Can I abbreviate the motion to move to clarify the proposal for review?
No.
No,
Okay, then you're gonna have to repeat it.
You guys?
I don't remember.
It was very long.
It's
All
too
right,
long,
so
it is too long of
it's
a
too long.
motion.
Okay. I propose that we have more clarification in writing concerning the 20-foot drainage proposal.
If this fails, I think I can summarize them.
Okay.
Just reject it.
Just do it.
Just reject the whole thing.
Okay. If there's no second, Mr. President, did that fail?
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion that the applicant be notified that the Jonathan Board requests that they draft an easement agreement and include maps and supporting documentation so that we can consider the request at that time.
Motion, do we have a second?
I second that.
Motion and second. Okay.
So what we didn't capture in that motion is that there was some dialogue from our attorney about dollar amount consideration. I think that part of the delivery, when our agent actually has that conversation, could contain some of that if the board, if we're expecting compensation for it, I think we need to give direction to the match company about what that number should look like at a minimum, if that's what the board wants. I mean, what's the pain point here? That we don't have an agreement, potentially that there's not consideration for it. And then what else, what's our other pain points? That's it. That's it for the pain points? For some, not all. Did the applicant talk about, did they have a date coming up? Is it time sensitive? Is there some?
I did talk to him. He said that it was approved by the city, but not by the Carver County Water. So he said, I tried to get somewhat of a date, and he just said, I don't think it'll be anytime real soon. It's kind of his response. Because I don't think they know. Depends how, if they have to go in their order. Everything has to get approved, but the city is approved. So now they're waiting for Carver County.
So potentially they,
Start soon, I would think it'd probably be spring.
well, potentially they have, maybe other approvals, they have time to come back to us, I guess. The real drop deadline here is what's in the option, right? Obviously that the sale of this property is contingent upon all of these approvals. What's that drop dead date? Because we're just one piece of this.
Right.
You've got a city council approval.
Yeah, that was,
These
But is
pages,
it concept or is it plans? Because it can't be plans. If they're still dealing with engineering, it can't be that city council's approved plans.
I believe the mayor commented on how he liked the plans based on watching the video.
Well,
The homes are gonna be built essentially so it's a front facade from both sides.
City council approved it.
so we need to acknowledge that we're potentially holding it up. So it's for the board to consider.
So we have a motion and a second, if they're discussing it. One thing I would just recommend in the future, when it's a request for action like this, I don't think we have to provide a formal motion as far as a response or the next steps. I think in a lot of cases, this request for action can either be accepted or rejected. And from there, I think we can continue to work through this with the applicant on getting it up to par with what we'd be expecting. Might make it easier on us next time when we're trying to decide which route to take. So with that said, I'll call a vote. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Steve.
the page is entitled Reciprocal Easement Agreement. Is that not, who drafted that?
Helmut
I believe that's with,
Helmuth?
Well, let's do a point of clarification here. So Helmuth also represents the sub-association. This agreement is for issues with the sub-association. Doesn't do with our property,
Right.
Correct.
although we have the secretary. But that's for other issues, right?
Why are we looking at it?
I think that they are just keeping us in the loop.
Yeah, they just submitted it with the request.
We want more information for ourselves as opposed to Cloverfield Association.
right, it looks like Cloverfield has reached an agreement with regard to snow plowing and other topics that were covered for the shared alleyway that's
Yeah.
not an alley,
It's just that,
common driveway.
it's just that now Jonathan is the only one who we have to have our land dug up for this project to go forward,
For one house.
for one house.
Oh,
One thing I would just mention to the board, this is incredibly one-sided, if you will, because when you look at the situation that we're in right now, the amount of effort and resources that has been asked of us is just, it hasn't been worth our time, and I don't think it's worth our time at all, but I think you know where my position is, so. So now we'll call a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Do you want me to repeat the motion that we're voting on?
No, so, sorry, can you,
Wolf
can
moved
you guys,
ahead.
no, can you guys just speak up a little bit? We said, we'll call a vote, all in favor,
Aye.
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 okay?
Abstain.
So, motion, okay, abstentions then, we have,
I abstained.
okay, so,
Oh, it was mine.
okay, all there.
It was my motion.
All opposed? All opposed? All right, abstentions?
Abstain.
So we have one person that didn't vote. So I'll assume it's an abstention. So the motion passes 4-2-2, two abstentions. That was ridiculous.
so now we're really gonna get down to business. What are we gonna have, what's the response gonna look like?
Yeah.
Right, because isn't that what you just said a moment ago, that we could have just worked on this offline?
Motion's been approved. Motion carried.
Okay.
Next item, board development. On page 123.
A lighter note.
Oh, I think this is me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I prepared this document for the board as a function of our previous working session. So what I presented to you in writing on the 4 or 5 page document is a request for motion. And the purpose is really, currently today, there's no funds set aside for board training or development. And what I've compiled was a list of different activities that if a board member chose to do, that they could explore those options, and that there would be funds set aside for it. For example, there's a board leadership development workshop at a cost of $50. There's numerous webinars that are offered by professional associations on page 124 that deal specifically with issues facing common interest communities such as ours that could perhaps be beneficial to bring some of those best practices or industry initiatives back to our homeowners association. And so this outlines or puts aside some money as kind of a test, if you will, or a test project of $3,000, and that money would expire December 31st of 2019 if it was not used. And the idea was to capture some potential items that would potentially be of interest. For example, on page 125 is the 2018 annual law seminar that actually, I believe, Tim Bronze is putting together, who's Director of Operations at Gasson?
Not more.
Not anymore.
Oh, excuse me?
He's actually the chair for the Minnesota CAI.
Okay. So he's, well, in the past, he's been, you know, an executive in the industry for a number of years, and so anyways, so there's some ideas. That's the request. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
I think this is great. I think we could all benefit from it.
I guess I would ask that the board make the motion that's requested in that request for action.
I will entertain a motion to approve funding of up to $3,000 for board training, development, and professional certification testing fees. Any unused allocation under this motion will expire on December 31st, 2019.
I second.
So moved. Right?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Oh, that's what you mean.
I will entertain a motion.
I see. Okay, I make the motion.
Motion and a second by Mr. Dooley. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Motion that we adjourn?
Motion adjourned. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We're adjourned at